Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of the ESS Harmony and watched the massive alien space station grow larger. The station was bigger than any city on Earth. It spun slowly in space around a giant gas planet that looked like a green marble. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful or so scary at the same time. "Captain, we're getting close to the docking bay," said Lieutenant Pete Garcia from the pilot's seat. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the nervousness underneath. "Good. Work, Pete. Take us in nice and slow," Jake replied. He turned to look at his small team. Dr. Lisa Crawford was checking her language computers for the 100th time. Ben Parker was reading notes about alien customs on his tablet. Both of them looked as nervous as Jake felt. This was humanity's first meeting with the aliens who controlled most of the galaxy. The Galactic Consortium had finally agreed to talk to the humans after years of requests. Jake knew that everything he said and did in the next few hours would decide Earth's future. The docking went smoothly. Jake could feel the slight bump as their ship connected to the alien station. Through the thick walls, he could hear strange sounds, alien sounds. "Remember," Jake said to his team, "we're here to make friends. These aliens have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. We need to show them that humans can be trusted." Dr. Crawford nodded. She was the best language expert on Earth. If anyone could talk to the aliens, it was her. Ben Parker was their culture expert. He had studied every piece of information they had about alien societies. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake stepped through first, followed by his team. The corridor beyond was huge and made of some kind of crystal material that seemed to glow with its own light. The air smelled clean but strange, like nothing Jake had ever experienced. Their guide was waiting for them. It was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal. When it moved, Jake could hear a soft musical sound, like wind chimes. Through their translator device, it spoke in a voice that sounded like singing. "Welcome, humans. I am Guide Zethmal. Follow me to the meeting chamber." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Jake saw other aliens, some that floated instead of walked, others that looked like giant insects, and some that were just balls of light. All of them stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. "There are so many different types," Ben whispered. "Over 300 species in the consortium," Dr. Crawford whispered back. Each one had to prove they were worthy to join. Jake wondered what humans would have to prove. The meeting chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a bowl, with seats arranged in circles going up toward the ceiling. Hundreds of aliens were already there, waiting. Jake had never felt so small. At the center of the chamber sat the most impressive alien Jake had ever seen. It was much larger than their guide, made of dark crystal that seemed to absorb light. When it spoke, the sound filled the entire chamber. "I am High Resonator Kirithvex, leader of the Galactic Consortium. You are the humans." It wasn't a question. Jake stepped forward and tried to keep his voice steady. "Yes, sir. I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing Earth and humanity. We're honored to meet you." "Honor," the alien repeated the word like it was strange. "An emotional concept. We shall see if you are suitable for membership in our civilization." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The way the alien said emotional made it sound like a dirty word. High Resonator Kirithvex began to explain how the consortium worked. Jake listened with growing horror as he realized what the alien was saying. The consortium was not just a group of friendly aliens working together. It was a system where species were ranked by how well they could control their emotions. Emotional reactions are signs of primitive development, the alien leader explained. Advanced species learn to suppress these basic impulses. Those who cannot are classified as lesser beings. Jake felt his heart sink. Humans were very emotional. They cried when they were sad, laughed when they were happy, and got angry when they were threatened. According to what he was hearing, this would make them lesser beings. What happens to lesser beings? Dr. Crawford asked quietly. They are guided toward improvement. If they cannot improve, they are removed for the greater good of galactic peace. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Removed. The alien was talking about destroying entire species just because they had feelings. Jake thought about his daughter Katie back on Earth. She was only 8 years old. She cried when she scraped her knee and laughed when he told her jokes. She gave him hugs that made all his problems seem smaller. According to these aliens, those were signs that she was primitive and needed to be removed. The chamber fell silent as all the aliens waited for the humans to respond. Jake could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him. He knew that whatever he said next would determine humanity's fate. But as he stood there, thinking about his little girl and all the humans back on Earth who laughed and cried and loved, Jake felt something he couldn't stop. Despite all his military training, despite knowing that he needed to stay strong, a single tear rolled down his cheek. The moment the tear appeared, everything changed. The crystal aliens began to vibrate with sounds that the translators couldn't understand. Other aliens started backing away from the humans. The chamber filled with sounds of panic and fear. Jake wiped the tear away, but it was too late. Every alien in the chamber had seen it. And somehow, Jake knew that this one moment of human emotion had changed everything forever. The silence in the chamber was broken by a sound Jake had never heard before. The crystal aliens were making high-pitched noises that seemed to hurt his ears. The translators were beeping wildly, unable to make sense of what they were hearing. High Resonator Kirith Vex stood up slowly, his dark crystal body towering over everyone else. When he spoke, his voice was different. It was no longer just formal. It was filled with something that sounded like fear. Guards, escort the humans to secure quarters immediately. Wait, Jake said, stepping forward. What's happening? I don't understand. But the crystal guards were already moving. They surrounded the human team and began leading them toward the exit. Jake could hear the other aliens in the chamber talking in dozens of different languages. The translators were picking up fragments of words, but none of it made sense. Dr. Crawford grabbed Jake's arm as they walked. Captain, I'm hearing something about a prophecy, and something called the Weeping Death. What does that mean? Ben asked. I don't know yet, but they're terrified of us now. The guards led them through more crystal corridors to a section of the station that looked different. The walls here were made of regular metal instead of crystal. The rooms they were given were comfortable but clearly designed to keep them inside. You will remain here while the council decides, one of the guards said through the translator. Do not attempt to leave. As soon as the guards left, Jake turned to his team. What just happened out there? Dr. Crawford was already working on her language computers. I recorded everything. Let me see if I can figure out what they were saying. Ben was pacing back and forth. Captain, I think we made a terrible mistake. These aliens don't just dislike emotions. They're afraid of them. Jake sat down heavily in one of the alien chairs. It was too big for him, making him feel even smaller than he already did. I couldn't help it. When I thought about Katie and all the people back home, I just ... You acted human, Dr. Crawford said without looking up from her work. And apparently, that's exactly what they were afraid of. For the next hour, Dr. Crawford worked on translating the recordings while Ben studied his notes about alien cultures. Jake tried to contact Earth, but something was blocking their communications. Finally, Dr. Crawford looked up with a pale face. I think I know what's happening. It's about an old prophecy. What kind of prophecy? Jake asked. According to what I could translate, There's an ancient prediction about a species that would come from the outer rim of the galaxy. This species would be different from all others because they would still have what the prophecy calls the gift of tears. Stopped pacing. Gift of tears? The ability to cry, to show emotion. The prophecy says that when this species appears, it will mark the beginning of the end for the current galactic order. Jake felt cold. So they think we're going to destroy them? It's more complicated than that. The prophecy talks about the weeping death, but it's not clear if that means we'll kill them, or if we'll cause something else to happen. Before anyone could respond, the door opened. A crystal alien entered, but this one was different from the guards. It was smaller, and its crystal body had a lighter color. When it spoke, its voice was softer. I am Naraketh. I serve as a cultural historian for the consortium. I have come to speak with you about the prophecy. Jake stood up. We're listening. The alien moved closer. What I am about to tell you is dangerous knowledge. If my superiors knew I was here, I would be removed from my position. Why are you taking that risk? Dr. Crawford asked. Because I believe the prophecy has been misunderstood for thousands of years. And because I think you may be the key to saving our galaxy, not destroying it. Naraketh began to tell them the real story of the Galactic Consortium. Long ago, the galaxy was very different. Many species had emotions like humans did. They created beautiful art, told stories, and formed deep friendships across species lines. Then came the empathy wars, Naraketh continued. Terrible conflicts that lasted for centuries. Entire star systems were destroyed. When the wars finally ended, the survivors blamed emotions for causing all the destruction. So they decided to get rid of emotions? Ben asked. Not just get rid of them. They began systematically destroying any species that still had strong emotional capabilities. They called it evolutionary guidance, but it was really genocide. Jake felt sick. How many species were destroyed? Thousands. Over the centuries, emotional beings were hunted down and eliminated. The consortium was built on their graves. Dr. Crawford was taking notes rapidly. But the prophecy wasn't about destruction. It was about hope. The ancient texts speak of a species that would return to remind the galaxy what it had lost. A species whose tears would awaken the sleeping hearts of the survivors. So when I cried, Doppelcoat's Jake began. You fulfilled the first part of the prophecy, but there's more. The prophecy says that the weeping ones will either heal the galaxy or watch it destroy itself, trying to prevent that healing. A loud alarm began sounding throughout the station. Naraketh's crystal body began to glow brighter. The Council has made their decision. They're going to try to destroy your species before the prophecy can be completed. Jake felt his blood run cold. They're going to attack Earth? Yes, the consortium fleet is already being prepared. They believe that if they eliminate humanity quickly, they can prevent the prophecy from coming true. How long do we have? Ben asked. Perhaps a day, maybe two. Your planet has no defenses against consortium weapons. Dr. Crawford looked up from her work. Captain, I'm picking up something else. There are other aliens on this station who are not part of the main consortium power structure. I think some of them have been waiting for this moment. Naraketh's body glowed even brighter. Yes, we are few, but we exist. We have secretly preserved the old ways, the old emotions. We have been waiting for the return of the weeping ones. Can you help us? Jake asked. We can try. But first, you must understand something important. The prophecy says that the weeping ones will face a choice. They can hide their nature and live as prisoners, or they can embrace what they are and change the galaxy forever. Jake thought about his daughter again. He thought about all the humans back on Earth, who laughed and loved and cried. He thought about the alien species that had been destroyed just for having feelings. "We won't hide," Jake said firmly. "If our emotions are what makes us human, then we'll show the galaxy what that means." Naraketh made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret, but somehow Jake knew it was approval. "Then we must prepare. The real battle is about to begin." Jake woke up to the sound of his communicator beeping. It was still dark in the alien quarters, but he could hear movement in the corridors outside. Something was happening. "Captain," Dr. Crawford's voice came through the device. "I've been working all night. You need to see what I found." Jake quickly got dressed and met his team in the main room. Dr. Crawford had spread out papers and computer screens everywhere. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she looked excited. "I've been digging through the station's historical records," she said. "Naraketh gave me access to files that have been hidden for centuries." "Jake, the official story about the empathy wars is a lie." "What do you mean?" Ben asked. "The emotional species didn't start the wars. They were defending themselves against the consortium's attempts to eliminate them. The wars happened because the emotionally sterile species were trying to commit genocide." Jake sat down hard. "So the current consortium is built on lies?" "Worse than that. They've been rewriting history for thousands of years. Every record, every story, every piece of evidence that showed emotional species in a positive light has been destroyed or changed." Ben was looking at one of the screens. "Look at this. It's artwork from the station's walls. I thought it was just decoration, but it's actually telling a story. The images show different alien species working together, creating beautiful things, exploring the galaxy with joy and wonder. But in later images, the emotional species were shown as dangerous and destructive." "It's propaganda," Dr. Crawford said. "They've been teaching their children that emotions are evil for so long that they believe it themselves." A soft chime announced someone at the door. Naraketh entered quickly, her crystal body flickering with nervous energy. "The Council has finished their debate," she said. "They have decided to classify humanity as a Class 5 threat to galactic stability." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means immediate elimination. The fleet will leave for your solar system in 6 hours." Jake felt panic rising in his chest. "We have to warn Earth. Your communications are still blocked. But there is another way. I can help you send a message, but you must be prepared for the consequences." "What consequences?" "If you warn your people, the consortium will know that someone helped you. They will hunt down everyone who has been secretly supporting the return of emotional species." Jake looked at his team. Dr. Crawford and Ben both nodded. They understood the risk. "We can't let billions of people die to protect a few," Jake said. "Help us send the message." Naraketh led them through hidden passages in the station. Jake was amazed to discover that there was almost a second station hidden inside the first one. These passages were used by the species that still secretly maintained emotional connections. "How many of you are there?" Ben asked. "More than the consortium leaders know, but fewer than we need. We have been careful for centuries, pretending to be emotionally sterile while preserving our true nature in secret." They reached a communication center that looked very different from the rest of the station. Instead of cold crystal surfaces, this room had warm colors and organic shapes. It felt more like something humans might build. "This is where we have maintained contact with the few emotional species that still exist in hidden parts of the galaxy," Naraketh explained. "Your people are not the first to be hunted, but you may be the last hope." Dr. Crawford worked quickly to establish a connection with Earth. When the signal connected, Admiral Helen Brooks' face appeared on the screen. She looked tired and worried. "Jake, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for hours. What's your status?" "Admiral, listen carefully. The aliens are going to attack Earth. You have maybe 6 hours to prepare." Admiral Brooks' face went white. "Attack? I thought this was a diplomatic mission. It was, but everything went wrong. These aliens have been destroying emotional species for thousands of years. They see us as a threat to their way of life. How many ships are we talking about? Narration answered. The consortium fleet has over 50,000 vessels. Your planet has no weapons that can stop them. Jake saw the hope guy in Admiral Brooks' eyes. Then we're finished. No, Jake said firmly. There might be another way. But you need to do something that's going to sound crazy. I'm listening. Don't prepare for war. Prepare for the biggest cultural exchange in human history. Send every artist, musician, writer, and storyteller you can find. Send them now. Jake, you're not making sense. How are artists going to stop an alien invasion? Dr. Crawford leaned toward the screen. Admiral, these aliens are afraid of emotions. But they're also starving for them. They've spent so long suppressing their feelings that they've forgotten what it means to truly live. The prophecy speaks of the weeping ones healing the galaxy. Narration added. I believe this means healing it spiritually, not through violence. Admiral Brooks was quiet for a long moment. You're asking me to bet the survival of humanity on poetry and paintings. I'm asking you to bet on what makes us human, Jake replied. These aliens have forgotten how to feel. Maybe it's time to remind them. After the communication ended, Jake and his team were escorted back to their quarters. But now they weren't alone. Other aliens began visiting them secretly. Some were crystal beings like Naraketh. Others were completely different species. A floating gas cloud creature named Whisper of Winds told them about the beautiful songs. Her people used to sing before they were forced to communicate only through data streams. A reptilian being called Scale Brother shared stories of the great festivals his people used to hold before emotions were banned. We remember, Scale Brother said, we pretend to be cold and logical, but inside we still dream of the old ways. Jake began to understand that the tear he had shed wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was a key that had unlocked doors that had been closed for centuries. All across the galaxy, beings who had hidden their true nature were starting to remember what they had lost, but time was running out. Jake could feel the station's vibrations change as the massive consortium fleet prepared to leave. Somewhere in space, 50,000 alien warships were getting ready to destroy Earth and everyone Jake loved. Is there any way to stop them? He asked Naraketh. The fleet will follow their orders unless something changes their minds. But the prophecy speaks of a great awakening. If enough beings remember what they truly are, the consortium's power will crumble. How do we make that happen? You must do what you did in the council chamber. You must show them that emotions are not something to fear, but something to celebrate. You must make them remember what it feels like to be truly alive. Jake looked out through the crystal walls at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting. His daughter was waiting. Billions of humans were going about their lives, not knowing that their existence hung in the balance. Then that's what we'll do, Jake said. We'll show them what it means to be human. The real battle was about to begin. Jake stood in the center of the great chamber once again, but this time everything was different. The chamber was packed with aliens from across the galaxy, all of them wanting to see the humans who had shed the prophetic tear. The consortium fleet was still preparing to leave for Earth, but High Resonator Kirith Vex had agreed to let Jake speak first. This is your last chance, human, the crystal leader said. Convince us that your species deserves to exist, or watch your world burn. Jake looked up at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. Some looked curious, others fearful, and many seemed angry. But in the back sections, he could see the beings who had visited him secretly. They were waiting to see if he would really do what he had promised. I want to tell you a story, Jake began. It's about a little girl named Katie. The Translation devices carried his words to every alien in the chamber. Jake saw some of them lean forward, interested despite themselves. Katie is my daughter. She's 8 years old, and she lives on Earth. When she was 5, she found a bird with a broken wing in our backyard. She cried when she saw it was hurt, and she spent weeks taking care of it until it could fly again. Jake paused, looking around the chamber. You would say that Katie's tears were a sign of weakness, that caring for one small bird was a waste of time and energy. But I want to tell you what really happened. He began to walk as he spoke, his voice growing stronger. Katie didn't just save that bird. She learned that even the smallest life has value. She learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to be gentle. She learned that helping others, even when it's hard, makes you feel more alive than anything else in the universe. Some of the aliens in the chamber were beginning to shift restlessly. Jake could hear their translators working overtime as they tried to process concepts they hadn't heard in centuries. Katie laughs when she's happy. She cries when she's sad. She gets angry when she sees someone being mean to her friends. And you know what? All of those feelings make her stronger, not weaker. They make her creative. They make her brave. They make her human. Dr. Crawford was watching the alien reactions carefully. She could see that some of the beings were beginning to change. Their body language was different, more open. A few were even making sounds that might have been approval. Jake continued his story. But now he was talking about more than just his daughter. He told them about human music that could make people cry with joy. He talked about art that captured feelings no words could describe. He spoke about the humans who risked their lives to save strangers, who gave up their own comfort to help those in need. We don't love because we're weak, Jake said. We love because it makes us strong enough to face anything. We don't cry because we're broken. We cry because we're alive. In the upper levels of the chamber, something amazing was happening. The crystal beings were beginning to change color. Their bodies, which had been cold and colorless, were starting to glow with soft light. The reptilian species were showing color patterns that hadn't been seen in thousands of years. High Resonator Kirith Vex noticed the changes, and his voice became harsh. Enough! You see how dangerous these creatures are? They are already contaminating our people with their primitive emotions, but it was too late. The changes were spreading through the chamber like ripples in a pond. Aliens who had suppressed their feelings for centuries were beginning to remember what it felt like to truly feel. Whisper of Winds. The gas cloud creature began to sing. Her voice was beautiful and sad and full of longing. Other aliens joined in, each adding their own voice to the song. The chamber filled with harmonies that hadn't been heard since before the empathy wars. Stop this, Kirith Vex commanded. Guards, arrest the humans. But the guards weren't moving. They were standing still, their crystal bodies glowing with new colors. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a voice that shook with emotion. High Resonator, I remember my name. My real name, not the designation you gave me. I am Crystal Song of Morning, and I have been dreaming of music for 300 years. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some aliens were trying to leave, frightened by the emotional awakening happening around them. Others were embracing the changes, literally embracing each other in ways that had been forbidden for millennia. Jake saw his chance. He activated his communicator and broadcast a message to the entire station. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. To all the beings who can hear this, I want you to know that you are not alone. For thousands of years you have been told that your feelings make you weak. You have been forced to hide your true nature, to pretend to be something you're not. But I'm here to tell you that emotions are not your enemy. They are your strength. The message was being broadcast throughout the consortium fleet as well. Dr. Crawford had managed to hack into their communication systems. Jake's words were reaching every ship, every alien, every being in the fleet. "I know you're afraid," Jake continued. "You've been taught that emotions lead to destruction. But look around you. Look at what's happening right now. Are you seeing destruction? Or are you seeing beings who have been asleep for centuries finally waking up?" On the main screen in the chamber, reports were coming in from all over the galaxy. Other stations were experiencing similar awakenings. Alien species that had been emotionally suppressed for millennia were beginning to remember their true nature. High Resonator Kirith Vex was becoming desperate. Security forces prepared to eliminate the humans immediately. But Nara Keth stepped forward, her crystal body now blazing with light. "No, I am Crystal Heart of Truth, and I speak for all who have been hiding in the shadows. We will not let you destroy these beings who have given us back our souls." Other aliens began to stand up throughout the chamber. They were declaring their real names, their true identities that had been hidden for centuries. The chamber was filling with light as suppressed emotions burst forth like water from a broken dam. Jake felt tears running down his face, but this time they were tears of joy. He was watching an entire galaxy wake up from a nightmare that had lasted for thousands of years. But the battle wasn't over yet. Through the station's communication systems, they could hear reports from the consortium fleet. Some ships were joining the awakening, but others were still loyal to the old ways. The fleet was beginning to split apart as different factions formed. "Captain," Dr. Crawford said urgently, "some of the ships are still heading for Earth. About half the fleet is still following orders." Jake's joy turned to determination. The awakening was spreading, but it wasn't fast enough. Earth was still in danger. "Then we need to give them something they can't ignore," Jake said. "We need to show them the full power of human emotion." He activated his communicator again, but this time he wasn't just talking to the aliens on the station. He was talking to everyone, the fleet, the awakening aliens, and the humans who were hopefully listening back on Earth. "My name is Jake Morrison, and I am a human being. I love my daughter more than my own life. I would die to protect her smile. I would fight the entire galaxy to keep her safe. And right now, I'm asking every human who can hear this to do something that might seem crazy." He paused, looking directly at the camera that was broadcasting his message across the galaxy. "I'm asking you to sing." The response from Earth was immediate and overwhelming. Through the communication systems, Jake could hear voices joining together from all over his home planet. Children singing lullabies, adults humming work songs, entire cities breaking into spontaneous choruses of hope and defiance. The effect on the aliens was electric. The chamber filled with beings who had never heard anything like it. The crystal aliens were glowing so brightly that the room looked like it was full of stars. The reptilian species were showing color patterns that painted the walls in rainbows. "What is this?" High Resonator Kirith Vex demanded. His own crystal body was beginning to show cracks of light, as if the songs were breaking through his emotional barriers. "It's what you've been missing for thousands of years," Jake said. "It's joy. It's hope. It's the sound of beings who aren't afraid to feel." Dr. Crawford was monitoring the communications from the fleet. "Captain, it's working. More ships are stopping their approach to Earth. The crews are. They're crying. I'm getting reports that some of the alien crews are experiencing emotions for the first time in their lives. But not everyone was ready to embrace the change. A group of consortium loyalists, led by a faction of the most rigid crystal beings, were still determined to destroy Earth. They saw the emotional awakening as a disease that needed to be stopped at its source. "Enough!" Kirith Vex roared. "Launch the cleansing torpedoes. Destroy the human homeworld before this contamination spreads further." Jake felt his heart stop. Even with everything they had accomplished, Some of the fleet was still going to attack Earth. He had to do something. But what could one human do against weapons that could destroy planets? Then he remembered something his daughter had said to him before he left on this mission. She had been sad about him going away, and he had tried to comfort her by saying he would be back soon. "Daddy," she had said, "even when you're far away, I'll still love you." Love doesn't get smaller when you're apart. It gets bigger. Jake understood what he had to do. "Narakath," he said, "can you patch me through to every ship in the fleet? Every single one?" "Yes, but what are you going to do?" "I'm going to tell them about Katie." The communication link opened, and Jake's voice reached every alien in the Consortium fleet. But this time, he wasn't making a speech or trying to convince them of anything. He was just a father talking about his daughter. "I want to tell you about bedtime stories," Jake said. "Every night, I read to my daughter before she goes to sleep. She has favorite stories that she asks for over and over again. Sometimes I get tired of reading the same story, but then I see how happy it makes her, and I remember that love isn't about doing what's easy. It's about doing what matters." His voice carried across space to thousands of alien ships. In the command centers, beings who had never experienced parental love were hearing about it for the first time. "Katie makes me a better person," Jake continued. "When I'm angry, she makes me laugh. When I'm scared, she gives me courage. When I'm sad, she hugs me until I feel better. That's what love does. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger than you ever thought possible." On the alien ships, something remarkable was happening. The crystal beings were beginning to remember their own offspring, relationships they had been forced to treat as merely genetic continuation programs. The reptilian species were recalling the warmth of family bonds they had been taught to suppress. "I would do anything for my daughter," Jake said. "I would give up my life to protect hers. Not because I'm weak, but because she represents everything good about humanity. She represents hope and joy, and the promise that tomorrow can be better than today." High Resonator Kirith Vex was fighting against the emotions that Jake's words were awakening in him. His crystal body was fracturing with internal light, and his voice was becoming less controlled. "Stop this manipulation," he managed to say. "It's not manipulation," Jake replied gently. "It's love. And I think somewhere inside that crystal shell, you remember what love feels like." The truth hit the chamber like a physical force. Kirith Vex's body began to change, the dark crystal becoming transparent and filled with golden light. "When?" He spoke again. His voice was completely different. I remember my name, my real name. I am Crystal Father of Many, and I have been dreaming of my children for 2,000 years. The transformation was complete. Across the galaxy, the emotional awakening had reached a critical mass. The Consortium fleet stopped its attack on Earth and began to disperse, with individual ships and crews choosing their own paths for the first time in millennia. Jake received a communication from Earth. Admiral Brooks appeared on the screen, but she was smiling through her tears. "Jake, I don't know what you did out there, but it worked. The alien ships have withdrawn, and we've been getting messages from all over the galaxy. Species that we've never heard of are asking for cultural exchanges. They want to learn about human music, art, and literature." "It's not just about humans anymore," Jake replied. "It's about every species that has been forced to hide their true nature. We've started something here that can't be stopped." Dr. Crawford was working frantically at her computer. "Captain, I'm getting reports from all over the galaxy. The emotional awakening is spreading to planets and systems we didn't even know existed. Species that have been hiding in remote sectors are coming forward." Ben was monitoring the station's internal communications. "Jake, you need to see this. The consortium's control structure is completely collapsing. Local governors are declaring independence. Trade routes are being opened that have been closed for centuries. But the most amazing change was happening right in the chamber around them. Aliens who had been enemies for thousands of years were embracing each other. The crystal beings were sharing light songs with the gas creatures. The reptilian species were teaching color language to anyone who wanted to learn. Naraketh, now calling herself Crystal Heart of Truth, approached Jake with tears of light streaming down her crystal face. "You have given us back our souls," she said. "But there is still much work to be done. The galaxy has been broken for so long, the healing will take time." "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now we build something new. Not a consortium based on fear and suppression, but a true community of beings who celebrate their differences instead of hiding them." Over the next few hours, Jake watched as the foundations of a new galactic civilization began to take shape. Representatives from hundreds of species worked together to create a charter that protected emotional expression as a fundamental right. The crystal beings who had once been the consortium's enforcers became its greatest advocates for change. They used their advanced technology to help spread the awakening to remote parts of the galaxy where emotional species might still be in hiding. Jake finally managed to establish a clear communication link with Earth. When the connection opened, he saw Katie's face on the screen. She was sitting in Admiral Brooks' office, having been brought there when the crisis began. "Daddy," she shouted, her face lighting up with joy. "Are you coming home?" "Yes, sweetheart," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm coming home, and I'm bringing some new friends with me." "Are they nice aliens?" Jake looked around the chamber at the beings who had once been ready to destroy humanity and were now celebrating their rediscovered emotions. "Yes, Katie, they're very nice, and they can't wait to meet you." The formal ceremonies took place over the next several days. The old consortium was officially dissolved, and in its place rose the galactic community of feeling beings. Every species, regardless of their emotional development, would be welcome as long as they respected the rights of others to feel. High Resonator Kirith Vex, now known by his true name Crystal Father of Many, approached Jake on the final day. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I was so afraid of emotions that I forgot they were what made life worth living." "You don't owe me anything," Jake replied. "You gave us all a second chance to get this right. There is something else." The prophecy spoke of the Weeping Ones healing the galaxy, but it also spoke of a gift that would be given in return. "What kind of gift?" Crystal Father of Many gestured toward the viewing ports, where stars stretched out in all directions. "Knowledge, technology, art and culture from thousands of worlds. Your species will never be alone again. You have friends across the galaxy now, and we will share everything we have learned during our long existence." Jake thought about what this would mean for humanity. Medical advances that could cure diseases. Energy technology that could end poverty. Art and music from civilizations that had existed for millions of years. But most importantly, they would have what they had always craved, the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. Jake's ship was escorted by a small fleet of alien vessels, each one carrying ambassadors who wanted to establish relationships with humanity. Dr. Crawford spent the entire trip learning new languages, while Ben worked on cultural exchange protocols. They finally saw Earth growing larger in the viewports. Jake felt a peace he had never experienced before. The blue and white marble looked more beautiful than ever, knowing that it was no longer a lonely outpost, but part of a vast community of feeling beings. The landing was broadcast across the planet. Millions of humans watched as alien ships